8:30, and I'm sitting here with Charlie O'Hara. He is in the studio to answer any of your legal questions. So if you have a question, hop on the phone right now, 316-436-1212. Charlie, thanks for being in here today.
Nice to be here.
Appreciate it a lot.
Sure.
Before the break, we were talking, and I mentioned that I feel like we've reported, unfortunately, on a swath of officer-involved shootings, and particularly just recently, there was a story about a pit bull charging an officer. The pit bull was shot, and I think a lot of people are really upset about that. But you mentioned, we really do need to keep in mind officers have that right to defend themselves. As a lawyer, how do you view those kinds of cases, and how do you approach something like that?
Well, obviously, the key for a lawyer is to look at the law. And sometimes what we do in a lot of these situations is we emotionally react. And we've got to be real careful to keep our emotions under control and look at the law. Obviously, if a pit bull is charging an officer, he has to defend himself some way. And obviously shooting is an extreme way to do that, but if you're really fearful something's going to happen to you, you have to defend yourself. So the officer would be justified. And the law, whether we like it or not, the law for the Supreme Court of the United States says when there's a shooting involving an officer, if it's a forcible felon and someone's running away, the officer has a right to shoot that person. Now, I'm not sure we all agree with that law, but that's what the Supreme Court of the United States says. Now, each state sometimes makes their law more restrictive than what the Supreme Court says, but people don't really realize, whether we like it or not, the law as it is that if you're running away from a policeman and the policeman believes with good reason, probable cause, that you've committed a violent felony, a forcible felony, they can shoot at you. So it's pretty severe. So I guess the rule is, if a police, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with the policeman or not, if he tells you to stop or something, you need to stop and turn around and talk to them. I know we all may disagree, a lot of us, but that's the law right now, and we need to follow the law. If we want to change the law, we go to the legislature and change it, and that's the way to do something like that. But every case is kind of individual, too.
Well, and I would be curious, thinking about a person involved, not the officer necessarily, but another person involved in an officer-involved shooting, as a family member or the person that was shot at, when do you bring an attorney into those types of situations? Is that an immediate thing? I know, like you said, those cases are very sensitive, and they probably take quite a bit of time to investigate thoroughly.
And quite frankly, they're very difficult for a private attorney to get involved, because the officers obviously has the government to help pay for the fees and everything else. And if you're an individual, you have to pay for those to investigate that. Every case needs to be judged on its facts. The problem is we try to put them all into categories, and they can't be done. Obviously, we don't want police officers going around shooting people for no reason, or people that don't need to be shot. But we also don't want officers having people, hurt them either, so or even dogs. So we have to have a judge each case on its facts, and that's what we have to look at. Most of them are gray areas or something that we're not looking at objectively, and that's what we really need to do. It's very difficult to take the emotion out of something when somebody dies or a dog dies.
Yes.
Or something, or someone gets hurt. It's very hard to take the emotion out and just look at the facts.
Well, I'm sure that's an extremely difficult part of your job, when people come to you emotionally and they're feeling charged up. But exactly like you said, you have to go by the letter of the law. You spend a lot of time studying it, so you have to, that's what you go by.
Well, it's very difficult because people are emotionally charged, usually with reason. And the law doesn't really take into account those emotions. And it's very difficult at times, even in the divorce cases that my daughter and the other attorneys in the office handle. People get really charged up about the divorce with reason, and we have to try to calm them down and get them down to a point that we can just look at the facts and the law and make decisions. It's very difficult.
Reasonable and logical.
Yes, very difficult.
Hard work.
Even for a jury, when we try a case to a jury or a judge, it's tough to get the emotion out of it and just judge it on the facts.
Well, thank you for the job that you do.
Well, thank you.
Talking about that, it's getting everybody a little emotional. We are unfortunately out of time, but thank you for talking with us about this stuff. And of course, we'll see you next week, Charlie. We'll be right back with more Eyewitness News this morning.